Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rewind and Replay. I'm Matan.
I'm Adrianna.
I'm Caitlin. Wait, was I supposed to say and I'm Caitlin?
That's fine. And we are joined by friend of the show, Albert, aka RabidDoh, to talk about Cyberpunk. How you doing, Albert?
2077.
Hey,
Thank you.
I'm just some guy y'all got from the streets here.
Yeah, we found him outside. He seemed cold. We brought him in. We said, we'll give you a home if you do this podcast with us.
Feet are getting frostbite as we speak, as you see.
So, Albert, what is your experience with Cyberpunk 2077 so far? How far did you get?
Okay, so in terms of my experience with just like this world of Cyberpunk in general, for me, I have played through the 2020 rulebook. I have the CD Projekt Red rulebook as well, core and world lore there as well. And I have finished the game actually just yesterday as of this recording, and kind of got a chance to see through at least half the endings from one able to gather.
How many was at least?
Hold on.
Sorry, go ahead, Caitlin.
Sorry, before we go too far, to be clear, we're not going to get into too many spoilers. Probably a little bit early on spoilers.
Yeah.
But Matan and I are both very early on in the game still, story-wise. So there's not going to be a ton of spoilers if you're worried about that.
Well, hold on. When we establish spoilers and early on, are we talking like prologue just to get everything straight? Like,
I'm gonna say a little bit beyond prologue, not a ton.
Yeah.
But I would say first like 10, 15 hours.
Okay. So yeah, definitely.
Probably
I guess you'd
Act
say.
1.
Yeah.
Okay. So definitely anything like with the trailers that CD Projekt Red has released over the years, that's free game. All that stuff in that kind of content, that's free game. Okay.
And there's been a lot of controversy about this game. So we're gonna go over, all the good stuff and the bad stuff and the ugly stuff, of which there is a lot. Adrianna, you have not played Cyberpunk 2077,
No,
but you
haven't.
But you have played Cyberpunk 2020, right?
No.
What are you talking about?
I played the tabletop game.
Isn't
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
Me, Albert, and Adrianna are all in a campaign together for the tabletop game.
Which is all I've always wanted to play it. Because I suck, yeah.
Matan is.
You can't.
I
hate Cyberpunk. I don't know what it is. I'm in the dark.
Too many punks. It's too cyber for me.
Technology? What's that?
Capitalism. As if.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. No, but so I didn't buy the game just because this genre is not. And by genre, I mean like the mechanics of the video game. The aesthetic is definitely my thing.
So this game, for those who are unaware, has been in development in some facet for the last 8.5 years. It was announced, I believe, in 2012. It had like a title reveal.
And what? They really could have used another 1.5 years.
Yeah. People
or more.
If I'm not wrong, just to clarify the timeline, this game was released about revealed that they were gonna like start work on it like 8 years ago. They released that, hey, this is an IP that CD Projekt Red is about to dive into, but they're gonna start development after The Witcher.
Right.
If I'm getting my information correct, like they only released that trailer just to get people hyped up for the title and such. And I believe development actually started after the completion of The Witcher's last DLC, Blood and Wine, which is about 3 years ago or so.
So a bad PR move. A bad PR move to announce 5 years before they started development.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there were some people cooking with some basic stuff for longer, but I think you're right. Like it wasn't to the major part of development until after all the DLC for Witcher 3. So it's only been really worked on significantly for the last 3 years, 4 years or so. And they have delayed it. It's become a meme how much they delayed this game. This game had a release date. I think that one of the original release dates was April of 2020.
Of this year, yeah.
Well,
It
last
might
year.
have even had an earlier date in 2019, and then it was on April 2020. Then it was November, and then they pushed it just 3 weeks to December.
And they should have pushed it another calendar year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Okay, so I actually did have this discussion with one of my friends. They're like, well, if they had pushed it again, like everyone would be so mad. Like they would not.
Yes.
Like the fan base wouldn't stay. But hey, guess what? The fan base is still pissed. Like that. Like
Yeah.
it was a loss situation, you know? So if I were upper level management, I would have picked for pushing because I think this is worse than delaying the game.
I think, again, I'm not too familiar with the intricate business aspects of the game, let alone game development in general. But I've read somewhere like on Reddit that I think one of the tricky things about them having to delay again, if they could have, is that they had to sign up with like contracts in order to get this released on like current gen and next gen consoles, and you know how that kind of went too. So I think it was just a contractual pressure for them to release it right now. If not, then they're just breaking contract.
You're right, Albert. And another big part of that, sort of building on that, is shareholders really want you to, want developers to hit certain fiscal years and fiscal quarters.
Yeah.
And I know that the fiscal year, I think, ends in March, but I think they wanted them to hit that quarter. And, what's very frustrating is a lot of these, shareholders don't know a lot about games. And so they want the money now, when in fact waiting a couple months probably would have had an even bigger return. That being said, Cyberpunk has sold crazy well.
It's also sold like crazy refunds on console.
You're right.
So
it was the most pre-ordered game on Steam ever.
Yes.
And had the biggest release weekend ever. That one I'm not sure about, but I think it had the biggest release weekend.
It was up there at least.
Ever. Yeah.
Top 10 for sure.
So to me, one of the sort of, we'll talk just brief bit of business more, and then we'll really get into the game. But what really gets to me is like these companies put out release dates so far in advance. Like, of course, I don't know everything that's going on the inside. I just wish they would give themselves, especially with a big open world game like this, give themselves more time than they think they need, because they're gonna use it, right? Like, let's say the first release date had been December. If they'd pushed it once, like, sure, there would have been some people mad. I don't think that would have made people as bad as pushing it this many times and then having it still be bad, like still be kind of broken.
Yeah.
Like, it's better to have the game done and then just wait like a couple weeks to put it out than have like it not finished and put it out not finished.
Yeah, and I mean, I think like you were saying, right, like there are other contracts going on that we don't get to see the details of. But I mean, when you're such a big studio, I mean, come on, like you have some leverage. Like, I don't know the details, but I feel like they are well off enough that they could have tried to push harder.
Witcher was a cash cow.
The initial like negotiation of the contracts, like you could have not negotiated, then you could have pushed the negotiation out further. Again, I don't know really how that works, but
I don't want to understate like that. I know that there's so much going on that none of us know about. Totally. I just wish this was a trend in gaming.
Us those things.
I wish this was, because so many games are delayed and so many games aren't delayed that should be. Like, delays suck. A bad game sucks worse. But I just wish they would let these things cook and not announce them quite so early.
Yeah, I mean, this was a unique case
you're right. You're right. You're right. But then I also wanted to mention the last delay from November to December was, according to them, to fix up the PS4, Xbox One versions of the game, which are now virtually unplayable.
Yeah.
I disagree a little bit, because I have a base PS4 game.
Oh.
I don't think it's any worse. Well, it probably is worse, but I don't like, from what I've talked to you, Matan, about it, I don't think it's any worse than your experience.
Okay.
Like, the experiences we've shared about the game, like mine has not been like, it's crashed a few times, sure, but everyone's has crashed a few times.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen either it's like really bad on console or it's like okay bad, and then on PC it's either like bearable, like okay, this is like there are a few bugs, but like it's fine, or you get like the console version.
Yeah.
Just depending on the specs of your computer.
Exactly.
Albert.
And, like, it's
oh, sorry. Go
playable.
ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's playable. It's definitely like there's bugs. It's not great, but it's not
Frustrating.
Oh, it's frustrating, but it's not. It hasn't completely ruined the game to the point of I can't play this anymore and I want to return it. You know.
Way
Albert,
to into like a place
but it
like Little
has for
China
a
where it's a
lot of
high
people.
population density.
Yeah. Now, mine can really chug sometimes when I'm outside. Albert, how has your game performed?
So I have an 8-core processor with a GTX 2070 Super, and there are definitely times when I'm like in crowded areas where it's just chugging real bad. Like I'm going like 10 frames a second tops at sometimes. Even in some environments where it's just like one person and the environment's just really messy. Like I'm at this one romantical NPC's place, right? You know, in some sort of manner, right? And I'm trying to hit up a conversation with this dude, but I literally have to turn my back away because every time I look at this dude, like when I'm trying to converse, everything goes at like 2 frames a second, and it's just painful.
So you have to look away from him as you talk to him?
Yeah, I have to look away after I select my dialogue choice, which is very sad too, as he's just strumming away on his invisible guitar.
That's funny.
Which, by the way, he should have a guitar, by the way, but it just didn't spawn in.
Right, it's
Or it
invisible.
did have a guitar, but it just like despawned out in like for some reason.
It took a so let's talk about let's talk about our experiences with the game.
Zero.
None. Okay, Adrianna, thank you. Everybody, thank you for
There we
watching.
go.
We'll catch you next time. This game, I actually, my opinion of the game, I actually really enjoyed it at first, and my enjoyment has really steadily decreased because
Why?
Because I have been running into more and more bugs that are prohibitive. Like, it's not just like, oh, look, like funny man die in weird position. It's like, this is like, it's getting less and less playable. And I want to hear Caitlin's first, but I have an anecdote. I actually played it like an hour and a half, 2 hours last night. Like, I was raging at how unplayable this game was. But I want to hear from Caitlin first. How often does this stuff get in your way? Are you having a good time?
But so just a question. So this is, you're enjoying it less, not because of a change in like the narrative design or like the world, or like other elements. It's purely the dysfunctionality.
I don't want to say purely, but mostly.
Yeah,
mostly.
I get that.
The pacing's been a little weird as well, but also that's partly me because it's an open world game. Like your pacing, you kind of decide for yourself. But go ahead, Caitlin.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel you. I'm getting frustrated a lot. I used to get crashes less frequently. I think you are onto something there. I think the further into the game we get, the worse the bugs are getting. Because I have been crashing more frequently. And I don't know if it's just because I'm on the PlayStation, like the base PS4, but whenever I die, it also takes like a good 5 minutes to reload.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, and like that's always frustrating.
Oh. Yeah.
And like, I don't know, that definitely stuff like that gets in the way. And there's like combat situations where I feel like I'm always constantly saying like, this would be fun if it was done correctly. Like if there wasn't so many glitches. Like I had one time, it was in like towards the beginning of the game when you're like at the Arasaka place with Jackie trying to like escape with like the chip.
Yeah.
And there's a part where like the elevator's open and it's supposed to be like a boss battle. Someone comes out, except no one came out. I just like heard the voice and it was like the goal in the top corner was like defeat that guy. And I was like, who?
Where is he?
Where? How?
And like I went into the elevator. I'm like, clearly I'm supposed to go in the elevator and go down. But I couldn't use the elevator because I couldn't. I was supposed to defeat the guy first. And then like I had to like run around in a circle because at like a certain angle he would appear and then I'd shoot him.
Yeah, I had that.
You had that too?
Not with that guy. I had it with a mini boss in a different point.
Yeah, it was so frustrating.
Yikes.
Oh,
And
dang.
finally, like I was able to defeat him just by like running in a circle and like eventually getting enough shots off. But it was like it wasn't the game. It was just like trying to figure out how to advance because like the game was glitching so bad.
Maybe Cyberpunk's glitchiness is like this very deep meta narrative on
It's a new
expectations.
type of
and
game.
True.
Puzzle solving. How
Yes,
can
exactly.
I?
Had a few
It's some meta
moments, you know, like,
commentary right there.
yeah, I've had a
Exactly.
few moments where like, you know, V obviously like has problems where they
Right.
like start glitching themselves.
Yes.
And like sometimes I'm like, wait, is that my game or is that
Yes. Totally. I know exactly what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Rough.
Can I ask? I'm Street Kid. Caitlin, what did you pick?
I'm Corpo.
Oh, cool. And Albert?
I'm also a Street Kid.
Cool.
Oh,
I actually was between Street Kid and Nomad. I went with
Mm.
Street Kid. I don't know anybody who's done Nomad. Adriana, do you know about these three base? Sort of
Yeah, I
classes?
mean, because they're similar to the tabletop. I
Okay.
assume Street Kid is
Yeah, they're kind of like your.
Like,
I mean,
fixer.
fixers. I got.
yeah.
They're
Yeah.
fixer-ish
Yeah.
type characters.
I would assume less competent at doing fixer stuff, but other skills
Yeah.
must be implied somewhere.
I mean, fixers are the ones who really are the ones who set the gigs and
Uh-huh.
such for
Yeah.
like other lower mercs. So that's where their role kind of kicks in. They're the really street smarts kind of characters
Yeah.
that you embody in the tabletop game.
To
essentially.
me, it seemed like Street Kid had the sort of fit the story the most. Like when I watched like
Mm.
later sort of the intro for Corpo, kind of then just like rush, in that montage with Jackie, kind of like rushes you into Street Kid.
Yeah. That's
where you
how
like
it
end
felt.
up on the underbelly and like stealing cars and meeting with fixers. It felt to me like Street Kid sort of had the most seamless blend in the story. But I wanted to talk about my experience yesterday just because I feel like it's a great sort of what's it called, like sort of a mini example of the sort of this larger issue. I'm playing this game. I won't do any significant, any story spoilers, but I was helping this woman steal back her car. So we go out into the middle of nowhere, and it's like, okay, I do a couple little things. The pacing's really weird. She talks to me in the car for a while, and it's interesting, but a little repetitive. We get there. It's like, oh, go into the substation. I don't have the strength to bust down the door, so I have to break the window. So I, melee it. I break the window. Only this tiny little piece falls out. So I try to like jump through the. Did you have this, Caitlin?
I did this exact side quest and I had the same problem.
Okay, so then I like take out my gun and I like blast a bunch of the glass. It still won't let me through. I blast more of the glass. I jump. It sends me about 150 feet back
Nice.
No.
into the desert, and so I run back and I blast every tiny little glass shard that I can, and then it finally lets me jump through.
Yep.
Then
You wouldn't have this problem if you had a high BT modifier.
right, true. I should have
Yes.
gone. I should also mention that I am running on a pretty new computer with a GTX 2080 graphics card.
Really?
So I break.
It's not a 3070 Matan.
It's not a
okay?
3070. I know. I'm a
It's
pleb.
your own fault. You should have a better. I see so many of those comments online. They're like, "It's your own fault. You should have the better system
I
to
know.
run."
Well,
I'm like,
that also came from the developers. They were basically like, "Oh, you want this game to run well? Like, play it on PC." It's like then you shouldn't be
excuse me.
selling it on a base
No.
on shitty.
Yeah.
God.
I mean,
Anyway.
I think like the 2070 or something like that is like beyond their recommended hardware settings
Yeah,
for
I
the
think
game
you're
as
right.
well.
But they
Which
do
is
that so they
whack.
can sell more copies.
Right.
Exactly.
So people without the requirements that they actually need
Yeah,
to play
right.
the game will buy it and then scream.
And let me be clear, like my computer should be able to run this very well. But
I mean, this is what they say on like the Steam page for like system requirements for like processor. You just need like an i5,
Yeah.
57K, and with like graphics, NVIDIA GeForce GTX 780 or AMD
780
RTX 470. Those are the minimum requirements to run a game. And
minimum requirements for the main menu to open. I bet. So I'm playing it. So anyway, it sends me back, and then these people show up. I'm sneaking around. I'm going quiet. It's going pretty well. I get up to the woman who has her car keys. I steal the car keys, and then there's a woman in my way leaving. So I hack her, and I like the hacking in this game, by the way. I actually do really like using this. So I hack her, and I turn off. You can reboot her optics so she can't see. So then I'm gonna sneak right up to her, grab her, knock her out. But then she like does this tiny little loop. She stands up. She's like, "What's going on?" She sits back down which somehow resets her eyes, and I'm just standing right in front of her, and she can see me. And I was like, "Oh, weird." So I die. I'm like, "Okay, weird glitch." I do it again. Happens again.
What?
And so I just kept having this issue, and I was trying to like reboot it, go somewhere else. But she's sitting down. I can't get to her back, and she's
Just
like
kill
looking
them
out.
all.
So I ended up in a firefight. I escaped with this woman. I'm like, "Hey," so she's like, "Hey, we need to go get the guy who actually stole it isn't here. Let's go kill him." And I was like, "Okay." I get in her car, and the passenger she's driving. We pull up to this gunfight with these guys. Also, by the way, driving through rocks in this cave.
Yeah,
no question.
I have a story about this fight
Please.
too.
I can't wait. I can't wait. So I'm driving along. I get out. Really hard gunfight. A ton of enemies at a very significant range. Also, I picked up ammo earlier, but then after I die, I don't have that much ammo anymore. So I'm like going through each gun. I've used I've used all my ammo. So all I have is the single clip in each gun. So I'm going through each gun using all the ammo. Next gun. Anyway, I die. Then it respawns me again, but in the front seat with her. So I'm in the middle of this woman's head. Her hair and her eyeballs are glitching through me. And then when it boots me out of the car, it like shoots me against the wall. This gunfight is insanely hard. And also when we get out of the car, she yells at me she was like, "Hey V, keep it down," and then yells at them.
Yeah. Oh man.
Anyway, just extremely like enemies are throwing grenades, and it's making invisible gas clouds that poison me. These gunfights are insanely difficult. Like this game it was just so frustrating that they like expected me to be able to do this. All these enemies, no ammo anywhere, and there's no way to approach. It's just I have so many issues with it. I played it for like an hour and a half, and then I just quit. I was like, I cannot do this to myself anymore.
Did you get past the gunfight?
No.
Okay. Yeah. No. I was stuck on that gunfight for about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Same thing kept happening. I kept dying, respawning in the driver's seat.
Yeah, with her.
Oh, it was so frustrating.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, the grenades were like insane. I had one grenade hit me right at the beginning. I was full health. I died.
Yeah.
I was like, what am I supposed to do? Like, how do you dodge those grenades?
You just have to like mash your healing button.
Yeah,
like maybe
exactly. And like you still like sometimes you can't do it fast enough if you're also getting shot at or like hacked. And like this was the point of the game that made me change from like I was on the medium level and I was like doing pretty well. This I changed it to easy. I was like, I can't do this.
I might have to.
Yeah. And eventually, like I think once I got it to easy, it was like pretty manageable. But still, like I was being hacked at some point, like
overheating. Yeah, totally.
You're supposed to be able to like move out of their sight line and that gets you to not overheat, but that wasn't working. And it
wasn't working.
Yeah.
And these people
don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it was like glitching and like not working or if like I was doing it wrong. And like that's the thing about this game. It's like I can't figure out if I'm doing it wrong or if it's glitching enough.
That's exactly it. Because I know that this game is so glitchy, like sometimes I'm wondering, like, am I going about this wrong or is the game doing it wrong? And I can't tell.
Yeah.
Albert, do you know what mission I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. It's the one with Panam, right?
Yes. Yeah. How did you do with that?
Surprisingly, actually pretty well compared to you two. Well, hold on. Let me backtrack and ask what are y'all's play styles? Like how are you approaching like combat or something like that?
It goes stealth first, but you know you can't do stealth on this. So I have a lot of points. There's a stat called cool for those who don't know. The most points I've invested are in cool, which is all about like charisma and stuff. But it's just I love that. So, you know, I'll hack them a little bit and I'll shoot them up. I'll throw my grenades. I don't know.
I'm usually a fan of like rifles and like longer range, but stealth first and then like back it up.
Okay. You see, I went for a more aggressive like playthrough for my first run through the game. So I pretty much dumped a lot into body type and reflexes.
Okay.
So I'm just using like assault rifles, revolvers, and my katana essentially. Like, I think a majority of the time I switch between my revolver and katana during that entire match. And I think there's a lot of explosive like barrels or like canisters around too. So that made it a bit dangerous. But I think I had a certain amount of stats or so that made using my katana viable. So I'm just like writing down everyone.
Good to know.
Slowly but surely, without necessarily dying too quickly or anything like that. I don't think I actually died during that segment actually, and I
Is
think
it
I did have
glitching,
a.
though?
Yeah,
Huh?
maybe yours wasn't glitching as bad.
Well, also a lot
Yeah.
of no, you're right. It's
And I also had like Chrome that prevented me from overheating. Like I did have a cybernetic that allowed me to not
That's-
overheat, so I didn't have
That's
to worry
nice.
about that whenever I got hacked.
So you didn't
And
even need the game to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There not only are there things that make the game beating the game easier, there are skill trees that make your game not break as much.
or at least die as fast as these
Sure.
two.
Truly a puzzle mechanic.
Yes.
Like glitching is its own layer to the
It
game.
really is.
What if
God,
that's
how
the
fucking
narrative they
horrible.
take? What if that was the narrative they took on this? It's like,
Honestly,
it's
they should
intentional.
have. I would have like mad respect.
So let's yeah, I have a lot of respect for that. Let's talk a little bit about the world, because I think like Adrianna, you guys are going to know about this as well. Like, what do you guys think of the world building, both in terms of lore and like visual design?
I like it. I mean, I think it's very like I am not one to do a ton of side quests in
Oh.
like open world games. But I'm enjoying these so far. I am getting kind of to the point where I'm like, it's glitching so bad. I kind of just want to get on with the story and finish the game just because it's glitching so bad. But I am enjoying the stories of the side quests and like
Yeah.
learning more about the world.
Yeah. Adrianna, like how, in your experience with Cyberpunk 2020, like does this game seem, it's 57 years later, does it seem like that much more advanced? Does it seem very different?
I haven't seen a lot of the game, and I mean, like what I
Mm.
have seen, I've watched like the funny clips of the
Yeah,
glitches. That's what mostly I watch.
For sure.
Tech wise, I mean, maybe it's how Albert runs it. I don't know, but our setting doesn't seem too not tech advanced.
Okay.
I also actually had a question based on like what I know of the tabletop and how this translates. Are there a lot of like skills that you can put points in? Like, what's that like? Because for rolling in the tabletop, there's like 800 different things under intelligence and reflexes, and
Yeah.
like
It's kind of similar. Like you have like,
Yeah?
the main like what like 5 or 6, and then once you
Yeah.
click on them, there's a ton of stuff within there that you can like put stuff into.
Right. So you have when you level up, you get a stat point and a perk point. So your
Yeah.
stat, you can
Yeah.
just level up your base reflex or whatever, and then you
Right.
get a point for a specific perk.
The thing about the 2020 rules, essentially, which is what I'm running with Caitlin and Adrianna to an extent, is that for leveling up, you pretty much use improvement points to level up just skills. You don't really level up your attribute points at all, which
Never,
are your big
Gotcha.
main stats. And your health is relatively consistent throughout the entire time. It's like everyone in the 2020 game has a flat amount of HP, like quadrants of like 4 per.
Yeah.
And
which I don't mind. Like I think that works really well for a tabletop game, and it's more about like your ability to dodge or kill the enemy faster or whatever,
Rather than your
like
sturdiness.
leveling up. Yeah, getting more beefy.
well, to be fair, they do change this up in Cyberpunk Red, where it's more towards like 5th edition D&D and all that kind of stuff too, where it's just like a pool of health now.
Yeah.
And they really simplified how health and armor, the thresholds of that kind of work, where I think it's like a halfway threshold for your health to go from like, hey, you're doing all right, doing all fine and dandy, to shit, I am crumbling down real hard, compared to the 2020 version, where for every 4th quadrant that you take damage towards, one, you roll like death saving throws in a way, and also like you get major debuffs, and it gets worse the further down you go. So there's a bit of an intensity in terms of like all the different like stats and stuff that you can acquire in the 2020 edition of the game, 2020 rulebook. But it's a fuck ton of math, and I don't support Caitlin and Adrianna with all that necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah, in 2077, you have like the skills, like body type, etc., and then you have the perks, and you have like skill trees, right? Like typical like Witcher style skill tree?
Not quite. I mean, it's the skills, and then you have like a perk trees. Like get this one.
Okay,
then
the
you get that
perk
one.
trees. Okay,
Um,
got it.
But before we get more into it, I'd like to take a moment to remind everyone that this episode is supported by our patron, Matan Sucks at Injustice 2. If you would like your name to be read on this podcast, you can support us at patreon.com/rewind_replay, which is linked in the description below. Thank you, Matan Sucks at Injustice 2. Man, I really wish that subscription would lapse.
Hey,
Really, everybody else
who
I would
is
really
doing that
love your
subscription,
Patreon.
keep subscribing, please.
Heck yeah. I think you missed what I said. I kind of said it underneath you, but I said it should be Matan Sex at Cyberpunk now.
Ooh.
Shit.
Hurtful? Yes. Incorrect? No. So I wanted to, we've roasted a lot about this game, but I wanted to talk about some of the strengths.
No,
Because this is a
none.
huge release. No strengths. Bad
No
game.
strengths.
0 out of 10. Don't buy.
Before we get into strengths, can we go one more negative?
Please,
And then-
please.
So I wanted to talk about character customization a bit and like some of the lack of customization
Mm.
because this game, like you're able to create your own entire character, which first off, it's kind of frustrating because you don't see your character at all really, which is weird. Second,
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people not like the character customization because it's you, as far as like gender and sexuality, you don't get a ton of choices.
Yeah.
The pronouns are they're stuck to the voices.
Right.
So she is with the female voice, he is with the male voice.
Which is very
Rough.
sorry.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention that as well. Just super weird to me that this game, they were proud of themselves and you can give anybody any genitalia and you don't have to like this game seems to be priding itself on its like achievements with non-binary identities and trans identities, but then one, pronouns are linked to the voices, and two, there's only 2 voices designated as masculine and feminine.
Exactly. And once you pick like one body type, I think it is, you're stuck with like the hair that goes with it. So if you pick like the female body,
really?
you're stuck with female hair. Yeah.
Really?
And then
That's
the male body
weird.
is male hair. Yeah, which was very weird.
It's also mechanically not that hard to separate.
Right.
them.
That's the other thing, is just have a decision maker of pick your pronouns. And then just put, like, that does not seem very hard to program in.
It's not. Like, I feel like linking it to something, like, that's not the thing I think anyone really does that much anymore.
No, and I was thinking about this. I was like, maybe it's because like the other characters interacting need to know whether to say he or she. But then I was like, that doesn't really matter. Like what your character
voice sounds like.
Yeah, it like there's no point where it's like your character, it doesn't really matter what your character sounds like. The other character can say he or she no matter what.
Totally.
Yeah. So that was really odd. It seemed like they tried to go for inclusion, but then didn't talk to a single person about it. They were just like, they were just like, this is what we think needs to happen.
Yeah, they didn't have someone play test character creation. Like
exactly.
They changed
I was also
character creation a lot though. That's the thing. Like it's been through a huge transformation over the past 3 years, I guess, in terms of like the HUD and setup for sure.
What did it start as?
If I remember from the first 48-minute gameplay reveal trailer, I mean they had a lot more in-depth character building, I guess, in terms of like how you can set up your life path. And I'm not just talking about, picking nomad, street kid, or anything like that. You could have picked like your idols, your reasons for going to Night City, and all that kind of stuff too.
That's very tabletop.
Yeah,
it is very tabletop, and playing this game made me want to go back to the tabletop game even more.
Sure.
But yeah,
that's a good. Thank you for bringing that up there.
And they got rid of it. They got rid of that.
Yeah, I would have liked that.
That would have been so
balls. What the fuck? I was also thinking earlier, you were saying that like it felt more Street Kid was like the easiest, the seamless background to pick. And this is an issue I've been having actually with just like games in general. Why give that choice if the narrative works better with just like set the fucking background? You know what I mean? Like not everything needs to be customizable. Like it's okay if this is like a person with a backstory, like this is a person that exists and you get to change them. Like they are a main character that exists. You just get to change how they look.
Yeah.
That's a thing. Do it, game.
Yeah.
I mean,
Go ahead,
Your
Albert.
backstory does have an effect on like conversations you have in the future. Like you do have the
Mhm.
option to like really dive into your each and different backgrounds, and they do give unique and interesting perspectives of like certain conversations or ideas. You know, like I'm pretty sure like a street kid's like view of nomadic families is definitely going to be different from like an actual nomad themselves, right? And in
Right, but
terms of
if you're
how their hierarchy and
playing,
structures work.
but if you're playing a corpo and then the entire introduction of the game makes you feel like a street kid, like
Well,
there's
Well, it's almost that. It's that the intro is the only part that makes you feel like a corpo. As far as Caitlin, I don't want to speak to your experience, but like they have the little intro prologue bit for each character that is different, and then you sort of meet Jackie, and then you go into the street kid bit.
and yeah. I mean, and while it like I'm sure it changes like dialogue options and everything, but like
I hear you though, Adrianna. I agree with
it
you.
would be perhaps more consistent on like a bigger level, or again, or maybe just work harder on the game. Hey, like just take more time and make that the differences in background like matter more than what they are mattering.
Speaking from someone who's played as corpo, I agree with what you're saying, Matan. I felt like I just became street kid as soon as it started. There's a few options here and there that's like, oh, I can say this because I'm corpo, or like I have insight on this because of that, but it doesn't feel significant enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, sorry.
No,
do it better or just delete it. Honestly,
exactly.
Like,
yeah. I hear you, Adrianna. I also think like in my experience, this relates to like being a street kid, corpo nomad, but also like when you have sometimes you unlock dialogue when you like have enough skill points in an area, which is things that like I played a little bit. Mass Effect did that. If you had enough Paragon or Renegade, sometimes you'd get a different option.
Yeah.
And I've done some of those, but rarely has it really felt significant to me.
All right, all these devs need to just play more visual novels. My opinion, because in visual novels, no, but like especially in visual novels that like have that kind of dialogue separator, whether it's like, oh, your friendship point like gives you a new dialogue option, or like you have skill management. I love those. I love simulation games, and so like because your like lore is like you have 30 points, you have more options, and like it does actually matter.
And I think like having extra dialogue options when you have a bit of information or when you have an item is something that Witcher 3 did well. And I also wanted to applaud sort of the Telltale games in that a lot of their decisions, they don't really matter, but they feel like they do when you're doing them, which is the important part. And it feels often to me like Cyberpunk doesn't have quite enough of like the feeling like it matters. Like I'll see, oh, you're level 6 in tech, you can say this, and I'll say it, and it'll be a throwaway line, and then it takes me right back to the dialogue to like progress the story.
Exactly.
And so that kind of thing becomes way more apparent in visual novels because you'll have like the fast forward feature where you only see new text. So if you pick something different and it keeps fast forwarding, then you know it didn't make a difference.
I will say, as someone who's played through a majority of the gigs, actually, I think that the choices do have some degree of impact on individual gigs, as well as to an extent the main story quest as well, in terms of like what you can do in the ending for sure. I know that sometime later down, like the main story quest line, you had an option to either leave an NPC that you've been with like for a good chunk of the story behind, or save him. And depending on whether you do that or not, he can actually be an asset for one of the endings that you can go for. And it's also a pathway to one of the achievements as well, towards the devil achievement, actually, which is interesting because as soon as I heard about this, I didn't save the dude, unfortunately, because I was told to like book it out of like this Arasaka attack. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess my dude's dead, so I guess I'm gonna go. And it's like really dark, and like this setting I'm at too, like it's like this kind of shoddy residential / motel. And like Arasaka corpse are like blasting through the place, and I'm like, man, I just want to go out. Like, so dark and just
from Albert, from what you said, it kind of sounds like the decisions do matter. It's like the reverse Telltale thing. They
Right.
do matter, but it doesn't feel like
At
it.
the moment,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it at the moment. It's like very subtle in a way. Like you don't realize when they matter until it happens later. I mean, same thing
Yeah, I
happened with
mean, the best of both worlds is that both happens. You feel
But-
like it matters and it changes the ending.
But knowing that gives me some solace, Albert.
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
I did want to mention, I wanted to talk a little bit about the strengths of this game when we have some time, just like,
Ah.
because I don't want to say that we're just ragging on it. Like, this game does some really incredible stuff.
Like what, Matan? Tell us.
So, thank you, Adrianna. So, I think that the world design, which I understand that they didn't make this world, but they did put it into the video game medium, is absolutely phenomenal.
Mhm.
The visual style, the music on the radio, having ads for guns play in the elevator because you're a captive audience, like the way that the cars look, the voice lines of people you're walking by, like some of the weird side quests, like there is really tremendous. This world is really tremendously built. It feels to me very often lived in. People are going about their lives, and I am just a citizen. Like, I really wish that it would run more smoother when I'm outdoors, because I love driving my car and looking around at the buildings and seeing each district that feels really distinct. Running into some weird event going on, like the open world design of this game to me is really strong.
And then running through a lamppost.
And then running through a lamppost, seeing a car flipping through the sky.
Yeah.
What about you,
favorite is
Caitlin?
when there's just a black wall and you're
Yes,
just like, that's,
it happens.
Yep, it's in the middle of the road. Where am I gonna go now?
What are you enjoying about this game, Caitlin?
I love the story so far. Like I said, I am doing a lot of the side quests and they're really interesting. And just like the main story too is so interesting to me. And I don't know, that's what's keeping me playing despite all the glitches and everything.
I mean, it speaks volumes that, like, despite how fucking hard the game is, like, just because of the gameplay issues, and like we spent most of the episode ragging on the game, you're still playing it through though.
Yeah.
So that has to speak a lot to how well crafted the narratives are.
Great point. Albert,
Like
what
you
about
said.
you? What did you? Oh, sorry, Caitlin,
sorry.
you have more.
I was
You have
just
more to
gonna say,
say?
like you said, these characters feel so real, and when I'm helping them on like their side quests, like it feels like I'm just in their life. Like,
What's your favorite side quest, you guys?
I'm really liking the stuff with Pan Am.
I was gonna say Pan Am as well, but I heard about a side quest that involves a sentient soda machine, and I cannot wait to find that one.
Ooh, that's cool. I
What
like
about you,
the
Albert?
Delamain ones with like the cars.
Oh, those are fun. I like.
Oh
Delamain,
yeah, a lot of fun Easter eggs on that one too.
Yeah, like the portal stuff. That was cool.
Yes.
I was
do you have a favorite
so
side
happy
quest? When I heard that encounter for the first time. Like, that was amazing. Like, I didn't realize they had like a portal Easter egg. And this is also a fun anecdote. So the first time I'm doing that gig, I'm just following this Delamain car, right?
We should specify. Delamain is like robot Uber, where you like call them. Totally run by this one AI, and they send you a car, and that's it.
Yeah, you get to use a Delamain during the Arasaka heist in the prologue. So that's where you're first introduced, and you get to do side missions later on where you're just trying to find Delamain cars that gone rogue. But to this anecdote, so I'm following like this GLaDOS, Delamain, right? And I'm like under a bridge underpass, and I'm on my motorcycle, right? And I'm just trying to follow it. Nothing goes wrong. And then all of a sudden, like my motorcycle just stops. Like I can't seem to pass it for some reason, and the Delamain car is just passed too. And then I'm turning around, and there's some dudes like crawl up from behind me, right? And I didn't realize they were hostile at the time, but after a bit, I'm still trying to drive through, but then they start blasting right into me, like right into my motorcycle, and I'm just panicking, like I'm trying to get out, man. And then all of a sudden, bam! I just freaking explode.
Oh.
That was a very unfortunate turn of events.
This
I didn't
part
realize I was
was
supposed to get
also
off and
very
then actually fight them in the heat of the moment.
This is one of the first combat situations that I was like stuck in. Matan, I texted you about this part. This is when I asked you if you had done the side quest yet.
Gotcha.
Like, this was so frustrating. They're all attacking you, but if you get out your gun and try to defend yourself, it calls the police. Like,
Yeah.
and I was like, what? And then the police
Yeah.
start attacking you too. And then I was like, how am I supposed to like defeat this?
There are totally weird things like that. Again, sorry, I'm not trying to rag on it again too much,
Yeah.
but like sometimes the police, they like want your help with stuff. And so I saw these police were in a gunfight. And so, fuck 12, but I decided to help the cops in this instance. And cute puppy. Sorry, listeners, Adrianna's showing us her dog.
I know.
And so I pull up and I start shooting the other guys, and then the cops turn on me and start shooting me. I'm like, what? I was helping you.
I know. That's happened to me a few times.
I like
thing is
that fuck the cops is the same.
Yeah.
Tabletop.
I mean, the thing with the cops too is that, once you get like some stars, they just instantly teleport to your position.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like I tried this experiment. Like, I'm like on the top of like this roof, right? Very secluded location, right? And I'm throwing grenades out onto like a crowd, normal like science stuff right there.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I get 4 stars, and then like a full squadron of like NCPD forces with like drones spawn instantly on the on the rooftop where I was at, and it was secluded. Like, there was a fence blocking out like any pedestrian access, and then bam, I get blasted off the roof, essentially.
Yeah, there are like, I feel like once everybody's beaten this game, everybody's gonna have 100 funny anecdotes.
Yeah.
In a good way. Like, I saw this great video, maybe it was a TikTok, that I felt like was a perfect microcosm of Cyberpunk, which was this guy he's like, the shading in this game is like nothing I've ever seen. So this guy's walking, under some shade and back, and like the lighting on his gun changes in this, very realistic looking way. It's like awesome, clearly great attention to detail. He looks up and it's just a car hovering midair. It's like, that is Cyberpunk right there. That's all you need. I've had a good time with this game. I really have. I have enjoyed, some of the characters feel a little one note, but a lot of them are really strong.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting world, interesting story beats. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's sad. I'm having a good time. I just am hoping that I'm getting the worst of it now, but it seems of the glitches, and it seems like I'm not. Like, it's going to keep getting bad and staying bad.
I feel that.
Which is really unfortunate. I think in 1 year, Cyberpunk is going to be incredible.
Yeah, but who knows if people will still be enthused to play.
You're right. Though I will say, Witcher had a rocky launch as well, Witcher 3, and it made it through. I don't think it was as rocky as this, but it had its issues.
Yeah,
I mean, Albert, how many? And you said at the beginning that you've gone through like half the endings.
I think there were like 7 actual endings for sure, and I only got to like 4 of them.
Wow.
How much time do we have left, by the way, Matan?
Not too much.
Okay. I'll go through my 2 cents about this game, essentially, and
Please.
how I felt about it. So a lot of y'all are talking about like the world building and all that kind of stuff too, and like I have to wholeheartedly agree. Like, CD Projekt Red, in terms of writing or at least constructing this world with like Mike Pondsmith, the creator of the original tabletop game, there was definitely a lot of care and inspiration that went into transferring the tabletop game into the world of Cyberpunk. I mean, even like looking through the lore, it's like you actually get to reference the Fourth Corporal War, right? Which is kind of introduced in in Cyberpunk Red. The Fourth Corporate War takes place from 2021 to 2023 with the bombing of Arasaka Tower, essentially ending the war, essentially. And a funny thing, like with Johnny Silverhand's character, played by Keanu Reeves, of course, you do reference like certain aspects of the rule books, like certain like events in the rule books themselves. Like, you literally have the chance to play through like a scenario, like one of those like so this is how you can play Cyberpunk in that kind of way, the Never Fade Away kind of thing in the 2020 book, where you go through like the whole kind of heist or what. I'm not trying to spoil it. I'm trying hard not to spoil it.
I can tell you're dancing around.
If you read that kind of passage from the 2020 rulebook, and you definitely can if you bought it on PC, because they literally, CD Projekt Red gives you like a digital copy of the rule book itself for you
Oh.
to go and have your fun tabletop fantasies.
That's
with
cool.
Nice.
That is nice.
Like it's special DLC content. But going back, yes, there's a lot of care in bringing, like, transferring the lore from the rule books over to the game, and I was absolutely giddy when certain like events or keynotes were referenced in the game as well. So that's where my cyberpunk nerd heart fell in terms of the world building and story. Now, as for the main story itself, well, I do feel like it was kind of a bit chunky at points. I will say that I had a very okay time with how the story kind of progressed. It almost kind of mirrors my experience with The Witcher in terms of like how it kind of built up to the climax. And for those who play The Witcher, take it as you will. And I'll leave it at that.
Cool.
But I will say I didn't have a terrible time with. I didn't hate Cyberpunk at all. Nevertheless, I didn't say I love it because there's obvious like errors and gameplay issues that are preventing it from reaching to that level. But my overall experience with it is, I think I have an utmost respect for what this game is trying to accomplish. Not in the sense that it's trying to be a revolutionary game. Well, it tries to market itself as one, but
sure. Albert, can I get a number out of 10?
Mm-hmm.
Can I get a number out of 10 from you?
7.
7.
I'll say a 7. Yeah.
Okay, Caitlin, can I hear from you?
I feel like where I am right now, having not finished the game, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay. I was at an 8 and I am now at a 6.
Ooh.
Yeah.
My hot number for not having played the game is a 2.
It's a 2. Oof.
Well, look,
Scathing.
I have high standards. Like, I don't play a lot of open worlds. If it's gonna be an open world game, it better rock my goddamn socks off. And I know it wouldn't. I mean, that's why I didn't buy it.
Sure. Good. It was the right decision for you, I think.
And I'm glad it's doing the tabletop game like well, that it's like taking the vibes and doing world building, but like the negatives I've heard kind of outweigh the pros.
Yeah.
And again, go ahead.
I also don't play a lot of open world. We've had this discussion before on here. Not a huge fan. But to me, the story of this game, it keeps me in it. And that's why it's high. I think it's higher because I'm enjoying the story enough that it's like making the open world worth it for me. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe as I play more, the glitches will lower it down to a 6.
Yeah, this is the thing that CD Projekt Red kind of marketed for this game. Like, it's not meant to be a first-person like action adventure first. It's geared towards being an RPG first, or at least a game that's geared towards at least immersing yourselves into the kind of world building that's established too.
And you can tell that it is an open world RPG first.
Yeah, and I mean, the unfortunate thing is that like with the trailers and everything, like this looked like a game I actually could have gotten really into, that could have blown my socks off. And it just didn't.
I mean, honestly, it's a matter of just consumer expectation in terms of like what you want to try to get out of a game.
To a point. I think the expectations of this game were way too high, and there was no way they were ever going to be met. That being said, they
met it way lower.
Yeah, I did expect to not, when I tried to climb through a window, get shot 150 feet into the desert, and I think I think that's an okay expectation.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I will say, like, bottom line, like, if you're looking for like an open world like game, you go with like a Rockstar game, like Red Dead or GTA. If you're looking for something that's more combat oriented, go with like Ghost Runner or Deus Ex if you want that kind of cyberpunk feel. But if you want a game that essentially is in its core an homage to the cyberpunk genre, or let alone like the sci-fi genre in general, I think that's the ultimate success that Cyberpunk 2077 has dealt for its presentation. Despite its kind of clunks or something like that, you do realize there is a definite like homage or respect to what the genre, its themes, its ideologies, its visual aesthetics has to offer in all different types of media, whether it's games, literature, movies and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
There's a definite respect that comes with like the making of that game, and once you play it through and see all the different aspects of it, you'll definitely have that kind of respect or appreciation in that department as well. And I think that's why I have a strong heart to that department for when I play through Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah, if you can get through the prologue and all the bugs, that's mostly responsible by, you know, upper management, not the actual developers.
Right. The people who worked on the game, the developers, this is not really their fault.
No, not at all.
Management. Yeah, but I think that just about does it for this episode. We could talk about Cyberpunk for hours.
I'm gonna lower my score to 7 out of 10 because it's first-person shooter.
Oh, it's hard for you. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So and we got a 7.
Yeah, I'm starting. I was fine for the longest time with the motion sickness. For some reason, something's changed. It's starting to get to me. So that's gonna lower the score for it.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, and with that unfortunate note, we're gonna have to call it.
Man, sorry to end on a
Let us know. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think in the comments, because we really could talk about this forever.
Totally. The discourse around this game is really interesting. We'd love to know your thoughts.
It slaps.
Yeah. But thank you very much for listening and watching. We post new episodes of this podcast every Friday. We just got off of a break, but we're back now. We can find them wherever you get podcasts or on YouTube with the video element. Support us on Patreon if you can. Help us make more content. We'd appreciate it.
Come insult Matan with your username.
Yeah, I really hope this doesn't become a trend. We're like, all
I
our
really
patrons
hope it
are
does.
Like,
I really hope it does.
Matan sucks at Cyberpunk. Matan sucks at Smash.
Matan sucks at Paladin.
Yeah.
Matan sucks at COD.
Matan has no worth. Like it gets like very like cutting at my insecurities. Like Matan's nose is too big. Like Matan, also follow us all on Twitch. We have a group Twitch channel and we all have individual ones, including Albert, twitch.tv/RabidDoh. All of these are linked in our description, as well as all of our socials. You can give us a follow. And
I also do video essays, but I'm currently on like a bit of a hiatus break, but I'll get back to that sometime during the 2021 beginning of this first quarter of the year.
Yeah, leave comments on his videos asking for a Cyberpunk video essay.
Albert's Alien video essay on the Alien series was very good.
It was really good.
Thank you.
So make sure you go check that out. It'll also be linked. And we've also got some new YouTube content coming. We've been doing a great film students react to the Crown series. It's Adrianna and our friend Gary. That's been really great. We've got a couple other exciting new series coming along. So make sure you subscribe and check those out.
Which it includes some ice and trivia questions.
Ice and trivia. Put those together as you will.
Yeah.
And we will catch you next time.
See ya.